Hey there. Today on the Founder Shoptalk, we are joined by Tom Henkenius, founder and CEO of Hankies, a curated online men's care store built to help men find effective grooming products with confidence. Tom is an Emmy-winning journalist, seasoned educator, and a brand strategist who saw a gap in the men's grooming world and set out to build a new kind of destination for men's self-care and confidence. Excited about this chat, so let's dive in. So hi, Tom. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time today and sharing your journey with our audience.
Hi, Abdalla. Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Just maybe to begin with, if you can tell us a little bit about your own journey, where you started and what experience shaped you before you started or founded Hankies. That would be great.
Yeah, my journey is, it kind of maybe doesn't make sense if you just look at a resume. You need someone to tell you a story. I graduated college undergrad 26 years ago now with journalism was the plan. I was going to be a journalist and I became a journalist, went on a broadcast journalism career, anchored morning TV shows across the country. And then the 2008 financial crisis, I was in Nevada and the property values just dropped, right? And it was just a mess. And I was offered a contract in the middle of that crisis that basically cut my salary by more than a third. And, I'd started my career making $17,000 a year. So I was barely finally getting above water financially 10 years after graduation. And I get this horrible job offer, continuing, contract at this company. And I was like, I just don't want any more of this. Never mind. I got to find a new career. So I moved home to LA, which is where I'm from. My grandparents, I always like to add this part of the story. Both my grandparents who were still living, turned 80 that year. And my sister was trying to get pregnant. So there was a family motivation as well for moving home. But I needed to find a new path. And, I realized quickly that I wasn't watching news like I used to. I wasn't consuming local news. I used to love local news, and then I just fell out of love with it. So what was I going to do next? So aha moment. A friend of mine is doing a TV show in the South, which is where I had lived on my journalism journey. And she was doing a cooking show. So long story short on that, we ended up distributing that particular show to about, I think it was 20 million households in the southeastern US. We published a cookbook. We had great advertisers. Tabasco was among them. Like we did really well. And then all of a sudden, just our advertising dropped to zero almost overnight. And it was because everybody had shifted their ad budgets from basically local television to this new thing called social media. And so I pivoted towards social media hard. We had the equipment from the production company, and I was like, well, companies are going to need content. So I started producing content for companies and kind of kept doing that. And that started getting bigger and bigger. As a storyteller, you kind of become a brand guy. As a brand guy, you understand marketing. And so long story short, too late. I was all the while teaching at FITM, which is a design college in downtown Los Angeles. And when I was hired, I was brought into the beauty business management program, the only business man. Flash forward 10 years, FITM goes through a lot. I could go on and on and on and on about all that. We were getting ready to close the college because the college ends up closing. And there was a stat I remembered from my first year teaching in 2014. The men's grooming industry was $4.6 billion. And then in 2024, they were projecting it would be basically $46 billion. So almost 10x in 10 years. Like what was going on? And so that's when I started diving in. First, I thought we'd start a brand. And then I found my own pain point. I went into Ulta and to Sephora and no one could help me. And I started looking around and saw there were a lot of brands that already existed, some amazing male-focused grooming brands, but they were not discoverable and there was no marketplace to find them. And so, the simplest way to describe it is we built the marketplace. But it's not the same as like the Amazon marketplace or even Sephora and Ulta are launching marketplaces now. We hold all the inventory because I want to hold the consumer journey. So long version of my story.
No, that's actually the short version. And I want to unpack it as we're going because I think
please.
you have a really unique background and most founders and entrepreneurs come from all type of backgrounds. And I'm curious, what lessons you would say that you gain from journalism and teaching that you personally apply in your daily life as a founder now, or you think that it's sets you up for success as a founder owning your own company at the moment?
I feel like every 2 or 3 years there's this trend where everybody wants to be a storyteller, and I think we're in one of those periods again. I have had on my LinkedIn profile for more than a decade now, storyteller. That's at the end of the day the sort of superpower that came out of journalism, right? Not to toot my own horn, but I did win 2 Emmy Awards. So I was pretty good at storytelling. And when I left the business, I knew that was what I wanted to continue doing. And then, flash forward to what you're asking about, starting a company, being a founder, pitching what it is, meeting with consumers, meeting with potential investors. It's all about storytelling. Truly, like, can you craft a story and a narrative that makes sense to people? And I think I'm pretty good at it, though. Let's check in a couple of years and make sure the company's still flying. If it is, then we can put the check mark next to the box.
Totally. So maybe if you can tell us a little bit about Hankies specifically. I think we've been talking about it and you touch on it and the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and I'm going to put on my professor hat for just a second, because I think some of this
Okay.
is contextual to the grooming industry. So specifically men's grooming. When I started teaching in the industry, two of the case studies that we looked at were Dollar Shave Club and Harry's. These were two companies that were trying to disrupt what had been a Gillette and Schick dominated shaving space. Like, those two owned, I can't remember the percent, but I mean, it was like 90+% was owned by Schick and Gillette. And here comes these two upstarts, and they think they're going to take it over. And the industry, the beauty industry, was like, no, it's not going to happen. And, it's kind of interesting to watch it from an academic point of view, because you could watch it happening. And the big shift, in my opinion, at that point was you had guys transitioning from having mom, wife, girlfriend, or boyfriend buy it for them to, oh, I'm going to buy it for myself. And there was this whole sort of story around the founder that you as a guy were investing yourself in. So that was kind of this interesting pivot in the industry around men's grooming. Flash forward those 10 years, right? So now it's 2023, 2024. And as I looked at that number, like I said, X growth in a decade. And I went out looking. Initially, I really did think I was going to launch a brand itself. And I went out looking and ordering product, and everything I could have wanted was there. So then it was more like, all right, I had to really dig for this. Like, I was digging deep to find these brands and these products. So let me just go check out what's at Ulta. Let me check out what's at Sephora. Let me check out what's at Blue Mercury. Right? I'm going into the spaces. I did a couple trips to New York where I just shopped Madison Avenue and Fifth Avenue and trying to see what's out there, and what, you assume in retail that kind of what's going on in New York City is going to inform the rest of the country at some point, right? Prestige kind of trickles down. So I'm looking at all this, and there's really nowhere for guys to shop. And I had questions, based a lot of the sort of thesis of the company around my own personal journey in grooming. I had questions. And so thankfully, I worked at a college where I was surrounded by other people in beauty, and I could ask those questions. And as I was getting the answers to the questions, I was, getting a more refined search to get just products to solve for me at that point. And then I was like, wait, if I just need to make this available to all the guys, and if I could make this journey I just went on available to every guy, it'll make his decision to transition within his grooming routine better. I mean, everybody has a grooming routine. So it's not like I don't feel like we're creating grooming routines from scratch. Everybody has one. We're just trying to make sure it's the most effective it can be. And that's kind of where, then you ask about the brand. That's kind of how we come into the problem area. And then you have to develop a brand. And I'm a big fan of Scott Galloway. Also, because I have been in higher education and around 19 to 22-year-olds for basically the last 20 years, I've seen what's been going on with guys in our country, and really, honestly, globally. They're falling behind, right? There's just no way around it. They're falling behind in, the New York Times just had an article last week, in reading scores. They're falling behind in dating. They're falling behind in the first time they have sex. They're falling behind in the number of friends they have. So as you look at sort of some of the ways that particular problem gets solved, it's around building confidence. So then you kind of start to look at what builds confidence. And one of the easiest examples is going to the gym. And it's not the fact that you go to the gym that builds the confidence. It's the routine And then the
Yeah.
routine has results. And so you do it and you do it again and you do it again and you notice a result. And then maybe at some point somebody compliments you on it and that reinforces that result. And that is what builds confidence. The research is all behind this. So I was like, okay, that's kind of where we will position the brand. This makes the most sense to me. Not every guy wants to go to the gym, but basically every guy washes his face in the shower. And if you just could upgrade the face wash you're using, and as you get a little older, maybe add a moisturizer, and everybody should be using an SPF, you might actually start to see some results. Kind of these two spaces of my life converge, right? Like my
Yeah.
interest in men's grooming, this kind of passion I have around young men and confidence, and seeing it even in my own friends and family. And so then, we launched the company back in almost a year ago, went live with the website just about 6 months ago. We cover 5 specific areas of grooming at this point. So that would be skincare, which includes the face and body, and then shave, beard, fragrance, and deodorant. So that's kind of the areas we cover. We focus on curation over quantity. We're really looking for, if we've got something that already checks a box for a specific man, I'm not going to bring in 2 more SKUs to compete with the one. Unless those SKUs are better, and then that one goes away, because the paradox of choice is a really true issue, especially among men. The more options they have in front of them, the further they run away from finding the solution. The
Yeah.
Amazon sort of style of shopping in this space doesn't work. So
Yeah.
our thesis is by curating and by presenting a lot of educational content, we can get guys to up their grooming game.
I really like also like that I would say like it's a bigger mission to Hankies is also like men's self-care in general and how the routines can. So if you maybe give me your thoughts about how do men, or you see the trend that is happening of bringing in these routines to treat self-care as an important part of men's daily routines, for example, as of course ourselves as men, like we tend to like not care about that or care when it's too late, or so how that plays in Henke's mission in general, and how would you see that trend happening and building the habit to actually bring in the self-care for men?
Yeah. So I'm going to just take one little small step back first, because I honestly, we haven't leaned super hard into this until maybe a couple months ago. In the founding journey, I wouldn't say we talked a lot about it. Although, that said, we stamp every one of our boxes with confidence is built. Anybody that gets something from us, there's a message there for you. So it's been part of us from the beginning. But I say that to say I didn't want it to feel performative, and I was worried it was going to feel performative. You talk about
Mhm.
all these founders. I was just at an event Friday night. All these
Yeah.
founders, they've got this grand mission and blah blah blah, and you're like, no, you don't. You just want to make money. Um, and honestly, I want to make money.
Appreciate your honesty.
I'm not trying to make money, but there's some truth to the underlying message that, as a 40-something-year-old founder, I don't know would have been there when I was 20-something. I've seen a lot of life to be able to see now how confidence affects guys. And I'm a data guy. And when data starts to tell us, all the things I just said about education, about, access to work, men are now, and it's not necessarily a good or a bad thing necessarily, but men now make up less than 50% of the college population. So all that to say, what's the lens I look at? Well, that I guess is the lens I come from, is I want guys to feel empowered to do their best.
Yeah.
And I honestly, personally, from a personal standpoint, of course, I root for the same for the women in my life and all of the girls I know and I've taught and etc. But my business is focused on guys who have not really been taught about this space, and so if we can get them to understand the value of self-care, of spending a little time improving yourself, that builds enough confidence for them to then walk out the door and apply for the job they were not going to apply for, or to ask the girl out that they weren't going to ask out otherwise. Like all of those pieces, if we can help improve that, is amazing. There's a flip side to the story too, though, in that guys who are our age are also kind of, I don't want to say losing hope. I don't think that's the right way to phrase it, but their life's rough, right? Life
Yeah.
is not easy. And are a group of young men who are very into self-care right now. And they are
Yeah.
teaching their fathers, uncles, older brothers, right? So it's upwardly, the push is upward as well as downward, right? This young
Yeah.
group is influencing older men who maybe have lost a little hope in life and are hitting this like midpoint in their career journey and not necessarily seeing that it's ever going to get any higher. Amazing if we can help build their confidence. And then the converse of that is if those of us who are in our mid 40s who have found ways to build confidence, whether it's by going to the gym, by dressing a little bit nicer, or by using grooming and self care, if we can influence them to feel better, I'm all in for it. Like that's at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and I think this is really great, and the educator in me as well, like want to just point out and share like some good lessons that what you're talking about here too. Like what I love about what you're saying is there is a big mission and there's a good calling, but your business is focused on specific consumers and also helping specific solving one specific problem in this big mission. So which is a good, I would say, listen for any founder or wannabe founders who is listening to us. Then don't try to solve everything in this big mission. Just focus on something that you can help. But also, like you mentioned, you are building a business, a consumer. Who is your consumer? How can you help them? And also how you can make money out of that in your business. So I really, this resonated with me a lot. I just want to point it out.
I'll
um,
take it. I will also say, I don't know that it was intentional, right? Like it just, yeah, I'll take the credit. Thank you. And the compliment is well received. But yeah, I want to point out that I don't know that it was necessarily intentional that we landed here. Or I landed here with this journey. Like it's funny how you just land in a spot and it makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
That's all I can say to it.
How do you curate the products for your consumers or customers? And also, I read this awesome standards that you have in your website. So, would love to also to learn about what's the Henkey standards and why does it matter in your business?
Okay. Let me hit both of those. I'll start with the Hanke standard and why it matters because it informs the first question about like how do we curate. So the Hanke standard is three simple things. So the first is it's got to be solid ingredients. We prefer them to be clean as much as possible. No over promises, no overhype. So it's going to deliver on what it promises, and then by delivering on what it promises, it will help to elevate your confidence over time. So make you feel good and then feel more confident over time. So that's three simple things that we kind of look at every product through. So how did we get to this sort of initial curation? Using that sort of framework, started ordering product direct from the brands, didn't let them know why I was ordering it, didn't reach out, didn't ask for free samples, paid for the product and had it sent to us from, I don't know, I think total was over 46, 48 brands that we looked at in the first, let's say, 6 months before we started the site. We landed on these products for a couple reasons. Kind of, in retail, and I have great guidance on this. This is not me being a genius. This is people guiding me. In retail, the easiest thing you can do is create personas and then answer for those personas. Do I have a moisturizer that works for this persona or this persona? And my personas were very wide. I think we were at 6 at one point. And honestly, I probably need to spend a minute and go back and relook at those. But the journey of the founder is you've always got a to-do list. And
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But we had these 6 personas. So it had everything to do with the type of skin. So, I'm a white guy, obviously. And so I don't know melanated skin. Like I've never lived that experience. So I handed products that I thought would serve more melanated men, meaning darker skin. Mostly in America, we're talking about Latino and African Americans. And so I handed those to my Latino and Black friends and was like, okay, what do you think? And then they kind of started to let me know what worked. For some of our others, it was, like the more athletic guy. I run marathons, so that was an easy one for me to kind of answer to. I have a cousin who's a gym goer. And so we really tried to think through like, what are these different personas that men inhabit? And do we have a shampoo for them? Do we have a moisturizer for them, et cetera? Are we answering all the concerns? So then to the point of concerns. Then we kind of lined up what are the concerns. So for hair, you have different concerns. A guy with thick hair, which I think you've got, lucky you, is got a different issue or set of concerns that they need and ingredients they would need in a shampoo and a conditioner than a guy like me who's fighting the thinning every day of my life, counting the hairs that are left. And then across, like skincare, redness, acne, anti-aging. we were just, are we checking all the boxes with the products and where's the overlap? So a lot of that was done with, human to human interaction. Like, here's a product, please go sample it. Let me know what you think. The other side of the thing is that you can also take ingredients and put them into Chat GPT and say, like, what works here? So I did some of that. And then we also have an esthetician who's on staff with us. And she also reviews every one of the products and makes sure it fits somewhere. But kind of that's I guess if there's a circle that makes up how we figure out that standard, the Henkey standard, that would sort of be the circle. Is it checking the boxes of the guys? Is it checking the boxes of the concerns? What is ChatGPT or AI saying about it? And then the final check is going through our esthetician.
That's awesome. That sounds really great. And just for the sake of, that our investment fund and our firm is focused on AI. So I have to ask, where do you see AI in this process or in the curation? And I know you started or you dabbled a little bit of trying to bring in some AI features. So how that's going and how would that play in the whole experience of the buying
Yeah,
the product?
I'm glad you asked. Thank you. It's funny, I forget to talk about the AI piece, and I should have known with you today. We should have talked about it off the top. No, AI has been with me from the beginning. Obviously, there's all the founder level things that AI can help you with. I'm sure, and I've heard you talk about some of those before. Specific to our business, where are we using AI? Well, as I just mentioned, it helps with the product assortment. And so we examine the ingredients and we look to see, like, okay, is this a solid product? Where do the ingredients lie? How does this product stack up against this product? So that's one way. And the more interesting ways we've been employing AI since we launched are kind of two. One is we have an AI face scanner on the site, so it's embedded in the site, and that will scan for skin issues. So a lot of guys don't know what's going on with their skin. Like, if I were to ask you, do you know your skin type? Is it normal, oily, or dry? Most guys actually can't answer the question. This AI,
That's probably me. I have no idea.
yeah. So you need
Yeah.
to start with the AI face scanner.
Yeah.
So it scans the face, gives you some concerns that might be impacting you, and then makes product recommendations from within our assortment for you to try out. Just in all honesty, I would love to see more use of it. We don't see it as used as I would like. I think part of that is it's the journey to it is hard. And then as a retailer, it's hard to say on the websites, especially, the point is to sell. So do you waste important space on the site with a banner saying get your AI face scan, or do you use that selling an actual product that's solving a problem? So I've kind of gone back and forth. But I will add this, when people use it, the average order value goes up by about 20%. So I found that interesting.
That is really interesting.
Yeah, that's the first way. The second way we've used AI since the beginning is through chat on the homepage and embedded on the whole site. But the chat can actually answer your questions. Personally, if you even have just the faintest bit of knowledge about your skin, like, you can answer simple questions like, I have acne or I have redness. I like that particular chat bot better. As with all AI, it's imperfect. It's not as solid as if you were talking to me. We actually offer esthetician meetings to our clientele specifically because the AI isn't perfect. So you can have a 15-minute consultation with our esthetician as well. But I think it's important, especially for men who are not necessarily comfortable in this space. I'm going to say something somewhat controversial, but as a gay guy, I think I'm allowed to say it. Like, I think there's a stigma around some of this that it's gay. Like, that's what gay guys do. And so guys are nervous to talk to their fellow friends and bros about skincare, about hair care, asking like, hey, what product do you do? I noticed your eyes are looking smoother lately. Are you using a new moisturizer? Like, you're not going to hear that. So where's the frictionless space that a guy can go and explore? To me, that's AI. So
Yeah.
that's why we've used it. And then more recently, Shopify is rolling out and just rolled out. We're built on the Shopify platform. Shopify just rolled out some integrations into OpenAI as well as in Claude. So we've got those going, and actually the day we turned it on, we saw a couple sales off of ChatGPT. So that was interesting to see. I'm curious to see where that goes as we move forward. But yeah, we are seeing the queries within the AI platforms, and we want to make sure we're positioned to answer those queries. I did create a GPT within ChatGPT right after we launched, but it never went anywhere. I don't nothing.
No, that's awesome. I'm glad you're also exploring that because, well, we have noticed from like some research, you probably already know a little bit about it as well.
No,
Like
tell me everything. Say
since
it.
the image specifically, or taking self images or uploading it to AI, usually takes a little bit of time for user to consider it and get used to it. But once they use it for specific needs like you have, it's usually also building the trust. Like once they know that the data is safe and not going to be used any misuse of it, that tend to kind of, once they build the trust, and I'm sure like people in general like been using AI more lately. The numbers are going up, especially in personal. The data says that Gen Z is using it more as basically asking personal questions. I don't want to say therapy because we shouldn't use it as a therapist, but
They
unfortunately,
are. Yeah.
yeah, we are using it a lot for that. So the opportunity there is awesome, and it's good to hear that is someone like you, for example, who's building an awesome online store, very focused, is using it to help men understand their skin better and what product can work with it. I personally can't wait to use it myself as well. I've
Yeah,
been saying
dive
that,
in.
but
Let me know your thoughts.
I'll
It's so
try it myself.
interesting. What you're saying there is kind of funny. Like, Google Ventures says, interview 5 guys or 5 people, and you'll kind of get a sense of what's going on if you can just talk to 5 people. And when we launched, I had 5 buddies I reached out to, all of whom are very close to my age, so mid 40s. Mix of dads, not dads, all that. But 5 guys I reached out to. The 2 who said they would be willing to use the AI were my super tech forward guys who have
Yeah,
been since like we were kids, right? Like these are guys that I've known since high school. And they were super tech forward. The rest of them who said no, they wouldn't, like, nope, nope, nope. And the biggest concern was the data and the privacy. What are you going to do with my picture? Was all their questions.
yeah,
What are you going to do
yeah,
with my picture?
yeah.
I got your picture already, dude. What are you worried about it?
Yeah, that's true. Like our pictures are already on our social media nowadays. So maybe taking a step back, we're going to talk about challenges. Like how or what is the challenges that you've been through, uh, if that you can share, of course, with us since you started. And also how did you navigate them? If you want to share that with us, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the most common challenge for any founder. It's funding, right? The dollars are what's most important. So my just step back and kind of walk through this in logical order. When I launched, I knew these first 6 months would be a proving space, right? Like I wasn't necessarily launching knowing that by month 3 we would be, bringing in all the cash all over the place. I knew that wasn't the case because I know also by launching a .com, marketing is going to be the biggest expense to attract audience. So I knew funding would be important. So I actually went to the Small Business Administration, which has these local SBDC offices. I live in Long Beach. Long Beach Community College, LBCC, has an office that I found online, and I reached out to them. They got me in touch with a bank for funding. They thought they said, "Oh, I thought I was going to need to like put a pitch deck together and talk to people like you. Hey, buddy, can you send me 10 grand?" And they were like, "No, don't do that yet. Like, let's see if we can get you a loan." So they found me a bank, and the bank approved the loan, and the SBA approved the loan in June. So it's an SBA backed loan. It did not fund until October. And that was a challenge, right? Like I was expecting that money with approval in June. I thought I'd at least get the money maybe by August. They basically said I'd have it by August. And it was still 2 more months. That's why we went live in August, actually, was because I had been promised that capital to come through. So we launched and we basically had no money for marketing for the first 3 months, which then means when we enter the marketing game, is in the middle of holiday when the marketing spend is the most expensive. The bid strategies are the most expensive on Meta and all the things. So that has probably been the biggest challenge so far is overcoming that and making our way through it and adjusting the financials by being basically 3 months behind in our marketing spend from where we wanted to be.
And if you don't mind me asking, like how did you navigate that, like with the marketing campaign itself? Like what did you do to kind of be able to navigate the financial constraints?
I mean, I don't want to sound like Pollyanna, but I'm going to sound like Pollyanna. I do actually believe every challenge there's an opportunity. And so I knew at that moment, let's lean into SEO as much as possible. And so I used a web designer, but I also know web design relatively well. And again, we're built on the Shopify platform. So between, and you asked about the AI. So this is kind of the confluence of all that. So my web designer, OpenAI, GPT, and I sort of worked together to come up with a meta field strategy for Shopify, and then tried to future proof it by also including some things for the GEO, for generalized intelligence, for ChatGPT to be able to find us as well. And so we have 150 SKUs, and I went through SKU by SKU and added several fields of data that would inform SEO and then inform GEO in the future.
Yeah.
Which the future was like 3 weeks away. Who knew? But then we also started creating content. I mean, for those people who are like, blogs are dead, the blog content has been a great driver of traffic even to this day. And, I could give you a little interesting anecdote. So before we got the funding from the bank, there's an article goes in the New York Times on a Sunday, and it's about shaving. And the last paragraph of that article, a dermatologist name checks a brand and a product we carry. And on that Sunday afternoon, I sold, I don't remember, several units, and it hadn't moved. Like, to that point, it had not moved. And when I woke
Yeah.
up Monday morning, it was sold out. And so that's when I did the Google search and found the article. And, when you look within Shopify at the UTM parameters, it was all organic. It was all coming through the fact that we had really tagged that product well. And the product's called Heath. You have to pronounce it really well. Heath.
He.
Otherwise, it sounds like you're saying something else. But anyway, so the Heath product is not carried by a lot of brands. So we lucked out by having it and by carrying it, and continue to really sell through it quite well, actually, because of that particular article and our SEO strategy around it. Of course, we then came in with Google AdWords to support it as soon as we saw it starting to deliver. Yeah. That was the way through it. SEO. Yeah.
SEO. That's amazing to hear. You about your business, even though we're connected. I knew because of your awesome also videos on social media. And I know you use that a little bit as well with the SEO, of course. And so that's it's just really good to also know the opportunities are there for founders to use what they already have. And as someone like you who has his own personal brand can lean into it and use it to put the word out there. I'm really excited about the future of Hankies. That's actually my next question, though. Where or what excites you about Hankies and what's next for Hankies, you will think, in the next, let's say, 6 months to a year?
Yeah. So what I'm super excited about right now is another round of fundraising. We had some metrics that I had sort of established that I wanted to hit to know whether or not these first 6 months of experimentation were worth pursuing further. I think we've hit those metrics. I'm pretty happy with where we're at with those. So that means it's time to start doing a more aggressive fundraising. And that would, again, mostly be to pay for marketing. The business is at a point now where we're super close to paying for our own operations month over month. So sales have been terrific to support operations at this point. Obviously, products, the cost of product is supported. You don't replace if it's not selling. So that's easy. So that I'm super excited about, which means, though, I need cash so that we can go deeper on the marketing efforts. And then I want to underline to go even deeper on the PR efforts. We have done some experiments on Meta that have really not proven fruitful. And I've talked to some other founders recently in the retail space who are also struggling on Meta with paid media. It's not turning much. It's great for awareness, but when you're at the bottom of the funnel, it's not driving much in terms of sales. And it's interesting, that New York Times article example is a great example of how great PR can be for you. So as much as we keep hearing like, traditional media is dead, every time any of my products ends up on a media outlet, I see traffic from it. So I want to invest further in that. So I'm excited to see those things happen through this fundraising round. It's very early stage round, so it's nothing formal. But then, so that's kind of what's coming next, and then what's exciting in that then becomes, I've been playing in Reddit, and I'm excited to actually spend in Reddit. I think that's going to be super interesting to see what happens there. I also, I have a sort of love-hate with TikTok. I put in a lot of effort in TikTok in November and December, and I felt like the return was just not worth it. So I've sort of backed off for January. But I have been speaking to a lot of people about TikTok Live. And so I want to go into TikTok Live and see what happens there.
Yeah,
Again, your journey kind of informs all of your present, right? And I got this background in broadcast journalism. So let me see if I can use that to QVCIze the
absolutely.
brand a little bit.
Yeah, I think TikTok itself in a transitional period as well from different ownership and in the US. So we'll see how it goes with that. So not to put you on the spot, but I would love to, even though I don't want to end our conversation, but I would love to end this conversation, ask you to, from a broader, like a big picture um, mission side of things. How do you want men to think differently about self-care and confidence 5 years from now?
So the company is founded. I guess I'll say it this way: the company is named for my grandpa. He was a mailman, and our last name is Henkenius, and no one could say it at the post office, so they called him Henkey. And so that was an easy grab for me. Both my grandfathers especially, were fantastic men who did amazing things. But my grandpa, being a mailman, was out in the sun every day and he never wore sunscreen. And so, by the end of his life, he'd gone to the dermatologist so much and he'd gotten this cut and that cut. He ended up dying of cancer. We're not sure if it was at all related to the skin cancers that he'd had removed over the years. But I think about my grandfather a lot, and the way he had 6 kids, the way he took care of those kids, worked 2, 3 jobs, but still was able, like, you could talk to any of my aunts and uncles and they'll tell you how magical Christmas was. And, how he'd find ways to make like these adventures in the summertime and all these great things for them. And I just look at that and I think, I think we've all realized before you can take care of anybody else, you have to take care of yourself. So if you're in a great space, then you can continue taking care of the people who are around you. And so when I think about the next 5 years, to your question, when I think about the next 5 years, I would love to see men evolve toward this type of masculinity where it is okay to take care of myself. And by taking care of myself, it means I'm going to put on an SPF so that I don't end up with some sort of skin cancer. I'm going to, if it makes me feel better about myself to have hair, then I'm going to buy a shampoo that is a little more expensive, but it's going to make me feel a little bit more confident in my hairline, right? And so I think as guys become more comfortable on that journey, if they then can give more to society, however they want to define it, whether it's family or friends or the general society, if they can turn around and give more, amazing, great. And if I can be a part of that journey, again, I know it sounds so trite, but it, like, really truly, if I can build a brand that's part of that journey for guys to go on and feel better about themselves and contribute more to society, hallelujah. It's good job, Tom. Nice way to spend my time. I'm good with that.
Yeah. I have no doubt. I know you well because I know you as well personally. So before we hang up, like anything else would you like to share with us or where our audience can find you and learn more about Hankies and yourself personally?
Yeah. I'm online at Hankies.com. So that's the easy one, Henkeys.com. On LinkedIn, I'm on all the socials. Our socials, and they're all on my phone. We have other people who have them on their phone too, but they're all on my phone. So if you have questions specifically to me, jump on any of our socials and the message will get to me quite quickly. Yeah, we're still a small operation. So I see it all.
Sounds great. I will make sure also to put all the links in the description. Well, thank you, Tom. This has been a pleasure. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for giving me a moment to reflect. In the founder journey, you don't always get that moment to reflect on where you're at. So thank you for that. This has been nice for me too.
Absolutely. And for our audience, thank you so much for watching and we'll see you on the next one.